All right, welcome everybody to episode 15 of the Content Lab podcast. Oh, I'm losing focus right there. We're with the man Christian Florez from Florez Media. He's a cinematographer and photographer. He's worked with huge clients that we'll talk more about that during the pod, but some of his biggest clients or biggest names in the industry are Nike, UFC, Xendurance, and some other brands that we'll talk about it. Christian, thank you so much for being on the pod, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me, bro. I'm pumped about this.
Yeah, same. If my audio starts messing up, let me know. Yesterday was pretty much a shit show. It was pretty bad with the audio with Ben. So, all right, let's start with talking about you. Tell me about your life growing up. How do you find cinematography and photography as a passion? While you're talking, let me get the focus thing. But yeah, I'm listening to you.
Yeah. Man, I feel like that's a really long story. But to simplify it, I wanted to get out of the corporate world. I've worked every kind of job you can think of. I mean, I've done from food, guest services, construction. I've worked in rehab facilities. I've worked at hospitals. I've worked selling clothes and apparel. I've done sales. I've done real estate. I mean, you name it. I've been in every single job, and it never lasted. Like, I just get over it. I get to a place where I'm like, I'm not really fulfilled from this, and I feel like I'm wasting my time because what's in my head is not what I'm doing as a profession. And so I remember I was at work one day, and I quit on the spot. I just had this like overwhelming feeling of like I'm not doing what I like. And I'm like really tired of showing up to a job to help someone else chase their dreams. And I quit with like 3 weeks left to pay my rent. I was living in Santa Monica, LA, if you're not familiar at the time. So I was paying like $1,800 for a 800 square foot studio, basically a shack. So rent was insane. And like, I didn't know what I was going to do. I just quit impulsively. And, I was already building a brand somewhat just through content creation. So for those of you that don't know, I have a personal brand as well. And so I was already shooting like high quality content just to build like a social following. This was back before, being an influencer was easy. And so I was doing that. So I already had a camera, and I just remember I put a post up on my story like, hey, I'm taking $100 photo shoots just to see if anyone would bite. And I had a handful of people reach out. Now, mind you, I sucked. Like, I was not good. Highly saturated colors, and so I just wasn't experienced.
What year are we talking about?
So the brand was established, I want to say about 6 years ago. So this was like whatever like 8 years ago was.
Yeah, like 2014.
Give or more like 2015, 2016,
Gotcha.
actually. Yeah. And so I put that on my story and had a handful of people reach out. For them, they were like, it's basically free content. I was giving people like hundreds of photos for $100. And it wasn't that it wasn't the quality that mattered to me at the time. It was the fact that I was actually able to book like paid shoot. That motivated me. Like, man, like if I can do this, being this bad at this craft, right? If people are going to pay me $100 being this bad, I can't imagine what would it look like if I like committed my time to this actually being my profession. So I was able to pull in enough $100 shoots that month to pay the remainder of my rent that I needed to make it through that month. And like, that was it. I was like, okay, this is what I'm doing. And so from that point on, I started doing a bunch of free shoots. I would reach out to like all my influencer friends and pro athletes and stuff like, hey, dude, like I'll give you free content. Let me just like practice with you. Like I'll shoot all your content. And so I built a portfolio that way. I did as much as I could to build a portfolio. And at the time too, like I didn't have obviously the experience in the industry to find a niche yet, right? I hadn't fine-tuned anything. So I was doing like baby photos. I was doing headshots, like corporate headshots. I was doing weddings. I was doing couples, anything that involved shoot content. I did it just to make money. And so like, that's kind of how it developed, my wife and I kind of built it together. We weren't married at the time, but she also had the like hate for the corporate world. And so we were shooting together. At the time she was the video head of the company. I was just shooting photos. now we're at a place where she, you know, I have her as a just stay-at-home mom. We homeschool our 2 kids. So she doesn't have to work, which is cool because anything that she does do, it's extra income for us. So that's kind of how like the brand was built. It was basically just started off of like a strong dislike for working a 9 to 5. And then just with a little boost of like, man, just with a little bit of motivation with
Yeah.
the fact that like I could be something was enough to get the ball rolling.
Absolutely. And I think that's pretty cool that you mentioned that, because a lot of the people that pop in the podcast and ask questions is a lot of people are those that have like a corporate job, and they're trying to get out of it and do content creation as a full time. So you could be like a, you know, if they ask you some questions, it would be pretty good to like see your perspective about that. Bringing it even back more before all that, like how do you find passion for like taking photos and creating videos? Because obviously you quit your corporate job and you started doing shoots for $100, but you had some experience, right? Like you knew how to operate a camera. How did that passion started?
Um, I liked the outcome, right? I just liked the product. Like I've always been creative. I used to do a lot of graffiti, you know, my past life. And so like tagging was a big thing for me. I love spray cans. I used to draw a lot in class. Art was always cool. I took some photography courses in high school. Like just, but like developing, right? That old school photography where you had to like develop in dark rooms and stuff. So all that was really cool to me. So like I've always liked the artistic world. So when I learned how to use a DSLR, I have a very addictive personality. So the second I knew that there was like a lot to this, I got obsessed. I needed to learn everything there was from every setting on a camera to how to be the best of the best, right? That was like a huge thing for me. So the passion was just out of like my personality.
Yeah.
Whatever I pick up, I'm going to obsess over it, whether it's short term or long term. Like my goal is to be the best at whatever I do, right? If I'm going to like start cooking food for my family, well, I'm going to be like a 5-star chef. Cause like, that's just how my works.
Love it. How do you start learning? Like, what do you have somebody kind of like influence you? Do you watch YouTube videos, or it's kind of like it just happened, like self-learned, self-taught?
Yeah. So it was all YouTube. I had obviously the idea of wanting to go to film school. My buddy Julio, sick videographer out of LA. I want to say he was like my mentor at the time. He went to film school, so his knowledge was through the roof. But he told me, he's like, bro, like nowadays, he's like, honestly, it was a waste of money. He's like, what film school taught, what you will take away from film school that's applicable today is like the mannerisms and logistics of business, right? Like things from like how to operate productions to like, you know, cable management to like, you know, just the logistics of the gritty work. But when it comes to your creativity and all that stuff like that, bro, that's God given. So YouTube was like the big thing. That was the big proponent. You know, people like Peter McKinnon are like staples for everyone. That was a big staple for me. I really just tried to find as many people as I could, but it wasn't people motivating more. So it was like I watched a lot of educational videos. I type in like how to shoot, you know, sharp photos. What is an f-stop? Like how to edit clean in Lightroom. What is cinematography? And I just every question I had, punch it into YouTube or Google, and I just try to find the answer for it. And that's how I'd watch 50 videos on it until I felt like I was proficient, and then I'd move on to the next concept.
Yeah, that's funny how most of us kind of start like that, just watching YouTube videos and similar people. And you can see by the influence, like you can see, like most creators like that started during like the same time that we did. And then you see our early work, it's kind of like super Peter McKinnon influence, or like Daniel Schiffer. You see like the camera movements and stuff. But then everybody kind of like just like you create your style after that. Um,
Yeah,
so we're talking about 20.
that's a tough template to follow.
Yeah,
People
yeah,
like Daniel Schiffer, it's next level, dude.
yeah. So we're talking about 2015, quitting your corporate job, and then starting full time. How did it develop from that? Like, was it pretty tough the first year or two? How did you start reaching out to clients without having a portfolio? I mean, you mentioned that you did some free work, but just tell me kind of like for people listening that are kind of like, hey, I want to do this too, like, but I want to know your experience as a full-time
Yeah.
content creator?
Yeah. So here's the thing, man. I'm like straight to the point with things. It's not always the best answer that people want to hear, but some of the best people that have done it have taken this route. I'm a big advocate of it, and that's like you got to just put your all into it. I had no backup plan when I quit my job, just to put it bluntly, right? Like I didn't know that I would that like there was no other option. Like this had to work or I was screwed. But my passion for it was big enough to where like it was worth the leap of faith. Um, and I think this is a huge component, right? This is a huge part that people miss that prevents them from taking that next step. I know a lot of people that are like right on the cusp, right? They make good money, but they're not making enough in comparison to their corporate job, so they're like, oh, well, like I'm not racking in enough yet to match like my current salary. So I'm not full-time content creator. But in my head, like I get that. But at the same time, the time that you're putting into your corporate job, if content creation is really what you're trying to do, the time you're putting into your corporate job can be that extra factor that will take your creation to the next level. Like that's that time and energy you're spending building someone else's company or dream is the missing proponent, and that will can catapult you to what it is that you need to do. Like instead of playing it safe, which I get it, it's a very common way of doing things. That playing it safe at the end of the day is going to hold you back until you end up taking that leap of faith. Like there isn't enough time of the day to split between two dreams. You got to pick
Yeah.
one and go for it. And that's what I did. That was the big thing that really, really launched this taking off. And of course the struggles, man. My first 4 years were brutal. I've had to borrow money from parents. I've taken out loans. You name it, man. I've done it. I've run through the ringer. My in-laws were like not stoked on me in the beginning, just to put it that way. They like straight up, he's not providing. Like it's not that I wasn't trying. I just wasn't nailing it. Right. I didn't know business etiquette. I didn't know how to just run my business. I didn't know that there's a difference between content creation and business. These are two things. They're not the same pod. So like even when I got good at creating content, I still sucked at business. So like I was terrible at pricing and value. I was terrible at retaining clients. Communication skills were crap. Like there's so many things that you have to develop over the course of time. But I think the issue with today's generation is it's this desire for instant gratification, right? We want to pick up a camera, right? Go buy the newest Canon or Sony, start firing away. And then all of a sudden we're Peter McKinnon. You forget that this dude's been building his YouTube channel for like 15 years. You know what I mean? Like it's a long-term process that builds foundation and longevity. And it's so much more valuable to do it that way than to get an immediate result, because you value the blood, sweat, and tears you put into that. Like that's what makes it your baby. That's what makes you value your time. And that's what makes you charge prices that will help you support your family, right? Like that's what makes you a full-time creative. The from the podcast mic you're using to the headphones to that sweet light setup you got in the back to the time it took you to buy all that, like this is an investment. Everything is an investment, and so it's like that instant gratification idea has to kind of vacate in order to make room for what's tangible, which is work hard, put your head down, pay your dues, and it'll pay off, right? There's a podcast that Andy Frisella has, First Form owner, and he talks about like tiers of business, right? And in those tiers of business, there's C, B, and A's in each tier. He said what separates tiers is that process in between where everything looks like it's going to shit, right? It's that turmoil where like, man, I'm not booking clients, I'm broke, this isn't working out, I'm not getting what I want. But we fail to see that it's in that time that our greatness is being developed and built. It's in that time frame that if you just walk through it, regardless of what you're going through, and you endure that pain, it's the people that are at the top tier are the ones that were able to endure the most amount of pain. They made it through that and then came out on top. And so the people underneath them, they're no longer competing there. They've graduated. They're on another tier, right? And so it's like, I think that's a big component of the part that isn't talked about enough, is just like the paying your dues part, the part that requires you to just walk through all the like times that things aren't working out for you and having faith that it will if you continue to pay your dues.
Dude, I'm kind of like speechless after all that, because it's so true, and I feel like so many people go through the same. And when usually people have a lot of experience in the industry, like as you said, you've been kind of in the full time for more than 6 years, 8 years. That's one of kind of like the answers that people give the most, like the successful people, is to, if you decide that this is what you want to do, if this is your passion, you just gotta dive in 100%. Like you can't be trying to deal with two things, just having like this as a part-time job, because at the end of the day, you're not putting your time and energy into what you want to the most, right? So even though if you can be like, oh, I'm doing a good job, but if you're not putting your 100%, you're never gonna reach the potential that you like, where you want to be. So I mean, definitely everything that you said, it makes sense in my mind. And I was kind of like similar. Obviously, I haven't been in the industry for that long, but I was kind of like dealing with like some part-time jobs. I was coaching across the gym, and kind of like obviously doing like cheaper jobs at the beginning. But the moment I said this, like just by coaching 2 hours a day, like the preparation, like the drive to go there, coaching 2 hours, then maybe working out another hour or two, then driving back, like I'm wasting, or not wasting, I'm just like, well, it could be set as wasting some time of my day that I could be reaching out to clients, that could be editing, I could be learning, right? I could be watching a YouTube video, reading a book or something that's gonna like just push me to get to where I want to be. So the moment I made the change and I said, this is it, like I'm gonna go full time into it. If it doesn't work, at least I'm gonna, fight hard and try to make it happen. That's when things started taking off. It was like instant, like things just taking off right away. Obviously, like you just waste so much energy by doing other things that you don't realize. You think it's only 2 hours of your day that you're not doing, like not focusing on your business, but at the end of the day, it's a lot. It's a lot of energy.
Yeah, man. It's the security component. Here's the thing is I get it. Like my whole life I did that. I get the 9 to 5. I get the security blanket that we like. We live in a society that fuels the ideology of like go to school and then get a job out of school and have a nice salary, or strive to have a nice salary, which is reliable, dependable income that what you're making, and live out the American dream and then retire. Like that's the vision that gets pumped out, which is great, but there's massive nuances within that gets completely overlooked, right? We're not living in a society where entrepreneurship is the main thing that gets pushed out. Not only that, when we do talk about entrepreneurship, we're not taught the nuances of entrepreneurship. We're not taught what that looks like. So we tell people to start a business, but we don't coach them through that. We don't tell them about the turmoils and the hard times. We don't tell them that like, hey, this isn't going to take 6 months. This might take 5 years, right? We don't, but like payoff is like one thing I can say today is like the difference between reliable income and entrepreneurial income is that I don't have a cap. The better I get and the more that I hustle allows me to make more money. And that's a huge thing for me is like, I don't want, and again, this isn't to knock on anyone's profession. If you have a full-time gig making what you make, great. But me personally, I don't know how big a company is. If you're only going to offer me 60, 80K a year and I have to bust my butt to get that, and no matter how much I work, I'm capped. This is what you're going to pay me no matter what. I lose my incentive. I'm just holding on to what you are giving me, and then I'm also being limited to what's possible. You're limiting my potential, right? In essence, what I'm telling myself is I'm only worth that 60K. I'm not worth being a millionaire. I'm not worth being a multiple streams of income business owner. I'm not worth having my time liberated, right? Like big motivation for me. Like I got a family, I got 2 kids. I'm not trying to go and be completely absent in their life today, right? I grew up that way. Like my mom worked a 9 to 5, my dad worked 9 to 5. They worked tons of overtime. I basically lived with my babysitter. That was like my parent. And like parents unfortunately miss out on massive times that are important for kids. And so I was like, man, like I don't want to have my time limited. If I want to go take a vacation today, if I want to go visit you in Pensacola today, bro, I can just bail. Right. Yeah. If I like want to go do whatever it is, I can't, because I'm my own, and I deal with my own consequences because I make my own decisions, right? I get to govern whatever it is, right? If I miss out on work, I missed out on work, but that was a conscious decision. My income or quality of life isn't dependent on someone else. I don't let someone else say, hey, like, you don't listen to me, I'm going to take your pay away, right? You're not going to fire me. Like, and so that was a huge motivator, is like, I wanted to have full control over my own life. And I was motivated by the fact that I realized a lot of the things that were taught, like, we were lied to. Like, these things are accessible to everyone. It comes down to the basics, right? There's a reason why, like, the people that are successful all say the same stuff. It's not that they're holding out on you. It's not that they have some trade secret that they don't want to tell the world. It's that they literally already gave you the answer, but you don't think it's that simple. Like, oh, there's no way it's just hard work and grit and hustle. They must have had $1 million inheritance. There must be some trade to that, or secret to that trade, that they knew, that they're all in on, and that they're not letting us smaller folks know about. No, they gave you the answer, and you're like, nah, that's not it. And then you just move on with your day, it's kind of sad.
Yeah. Yeah. And what you were mentioning about having like a floor, like you're saying, like, yeah, I'm working, I'm making 60K a year, 80K a year. That's the thing. Like, some people, like, straight off college, you can find a good job, right? But there's always that limit. Like, there's no more growth, like, in a company, like, you're making 80K a year. That's one of the beautiful things about content creation, that the only ceiling that there is the one that you put yourself, because you can always grow. You can always keep growing. At the point that you cannot do it yourself, you can keep, like, growing your team, start expanding, and, it's just kind of like what you're doing right now. Like, you have business where you have the ability to hire people and to, outsource, like, to different clients, and just keep growing. And right. There's something here that Enrique says it's very true. He says, talking about the instant gratification, the other day CrossFit Kate posted a quote saying, if it takes years, let it take years. And that's the truth. You just got to keep doing it. And I mean, it's true. Like, it's not going to go, like, you didn't build Florez Media in a year or two. Like you're saying, like, if it has to take 4 years and you're going to have to put the work, let it take 4 years to get to where you want to be.
Yeah, man. That time, like, there's no substitute for it. There's just not. Like, I know for me, like, there was a period of time, there was a couple of years where I didn't change anything about my business. From, like, it was about 2.5, 3 years where I didn't change anything. The only difference between the start of that time frame and the end was my income. So what did that tell me? It was like there was no way around the time that I needed to pay. Right? I didn't do anything dramatic. It was like, all of a sudden, I was just able to finally start booking clients. And it was like the maturity that comes with the time of being in the culture and in the experience of owning the business. Like, there was no way around that. It's just like, it's a time component. There's always anomalies, right? There's always people that come out and all of a sudden they were this, self-made entrepreneur where, like, their businesses just took off in a matter of seconds. But that's not the norm for us average folk, right? Like, we got to put our head down when we got to grind, And I think a huge a huge aspect of that too, man, is like knowing that it's okay to, like, reach out and ask for help. I have a strong community around me today of other content creators that I can't even tell you how much they've changed my business. Like Paul Weaver, huge shout out to Paul Weaver on Instagram. He's Paul Wheatthins. His business model, his business etiquette, not content creation. This is a huge thing. We're all good at content creation. I can toot everyone's horn. We're all good at that. A lot of us suck at business. Paul has a great perspective on business, what it means to run the business, the logistics, right? The stuff that you don't see on the back end. That's huge, right? People like Jason Anthony, people like Steve Anomaly, people like Andy Gevertz. These are all heads that are like, man, like, they'll blow your mind with the knowledge they have. And it's come from, they paid their dues. They have so much time in this field that there's no replacement for the stuff that you learn, And so if anyone is new or trying to learn a lot of this stuff, don't be afraid to reach out. If someone doesn't give you the answers you're looking for, ask someone else. I can't even tell you, bro, how many times I've been that annoying kid. I've asked all of my homies question after question, like, hey, like, why do you use this camera? Why is this, why do you use that lens? Tell me about like how you got that depth of field. Why is your stuff so sharp? Like, how did you charge this for this kind of project? Hey, how much did that company pay you for all the work you did? Like, I'm just going to ask you because like, if I don't, I'm never going to know. I think your audio cut out. I can't hear you. Nope.
There you go. All right.
There it is.
It was anyways, we were talking about what were we talking about again? It was the oh yeah, reaching out to people, like literally all the time. I still do it. Like to this date, I reach out to every time I have like a question about something kind of technical. I just like, I don't know, I reach out to my friends that are more like savvy to cameras, like my buddy Frank, that he's usually watching the podcast. Like he knows everything about every single camera. Like if it's a Blackmagic, a Sony, like he knows everything. So I'm gonna reach out to him. And same thing,
Right.
like at the beginning when I started, I had some of my friends that were kind of like my influence, kind of like my mentors, and I will ask them every single question. I'm like, dude, I'm sorry. Like, I'm sorry to keep asking you a question, but it's something like, I need to know. And it just helps. And at the end of the day, like most of them, they don't mind. They don't mind answering, like it's something that they share because they're like, why not? Like anybody, like all of us at some point, we had questions, right? We had doubts, and it's always good to have somebody as a mentor to, help you out. We have
Yeah, man.
Alex says, Carlos, stop scheduling the guests that I want to schedule right before I'm going to schedule for my podcast. Sorry, dude. We have Jordan, Christian, didn't get a chance to talk to you at Grindy Games, but love your stuff, bro.
Appreciate you, bro.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. The reaching out thing is huge. And I've talked about this before on another podcast, but it's very important to understand that people who hold information, people that don't want to give a helping hand, it's a massive reflection of their own insecurity. The space in itself, the industry of content creation, is full of scarcity, it's full of competition. Why? Because we don't think there's enough work to go around. So it's like, hey, I learned how to do this. Oh, I can't give you this because then you're gonna get better than me and take my client. That's ridiculous. That's absolutely ridiculous. I could go right now on Instagram and I could find you 10 new brands that you've never heard of within 5 minutes, like that. There's enough companies for everyone to have 10 retainer clients and be chilling. Yeah. So the scarcity model doesn't benefit you. It's a reflection of like your insecurity really in your own craft. Some of the best people that have given me the best advice are people that I know for a fact, like they're not worried about me. Like they are set. I've had people that even if I am better than them, right? They have their own clients. Like they're confident enough in their craft and business etiquette to know that they're going to be fine. And I've had people literally give me massive clients that they themselves could have had, but they felt I was a better fit and they referred me instead. And they're like, yeah, like I respect the work that you do and I think you're a better fit for it. They could have been like, yo, I'm going to keep this one to myself and just learn how to do this. But they're like, no, like there's enough to go around. So like if someone's going to withhold that kind of stuff from you, not only is that a reflection of insecurity, but it's a reflection of the character. Like that competitive nature, it bleeds into everything. Right. We need to be. And how do you expect the industry to have any sort of value when you're always competing against each other? This is a huge issue that we've all talked about. I talked to you about this at Granite, Carlos. Like when we have, you have this, let's say you have the price margin that you operate by. Let's say I want to charge a client, 4, 5, 6K for X, Y, and Z, right? This package. But then there's 3 content creators over here that are so desperate that they'll do it for free or they'll do it for a couple $100. What that does, instead of elevating each other, what that does is it brings the overall standard and value of the industry down. Now companies think they have the right to undervalue what it is that you do as a creative. And they go, yeah, cool, your work is dope, but I got this guy over here that'll charge me a quarter of the price. Like what all that does is it decreases our value, and then it makes the industry less valuable as a whole. Like it makes us seem less important. But if we were to all be working in unison and we all, like, I think about this all the time. Imagine if we all kind of established general price point. Like no matter what you do in content creation, no one's going to get paid under 3K. If we all unanimously agreed to this, 3,000 is the minimum. That's the minimum cap. Can you imagine if we all just, there would be no backups for all these brands. They'd be like, damn, we're going to have to step up our marketing. And here's the reality of it. They have the budget. But if you give them an inch, they're going to take a mile. Absolutely. Right? Brands have the budget. They always have the budget. And but if you're like, oh, there's a little rebuttal. All right, then I'll charge you $1,500 instead of $3,000. How about that? They're like, oh, how about like $1,000? Now you're overworking yourself for something that isn't even going to pay your rent.
Yeah. And I talk about it often, how there's a lot of people that just for, I mean, you were talking about instant gratification. Like there's some people that will do it just because they know that in the CrossFit space, like they're going to get a lot of likes and followers. And they're like, oh, you know, like I want to work with this brand, but I'll do it for free. And I get it. Like I get at the beginning working, you said like you did some jobs for free and all that just to build your portfolio, which is absolutely fine. Like we all worked for free at some point, but once you're established, if that's what you do, like, oh yeah, you know, like I can just do this gig for $350 or just like, you know, for free, but I just want to like be there and take photos and get likes. As you say, you're messing up the whole industry. You're setting the standard to a much lower place. And dude, I wish we could all like have like a huge group, like you were saying, like a huge like Facebook group, and be like, hey, from now on, nobody can charge less than, I don't know, 2,500 a day.
Right.
And then from there, yeah. And then companies will be like,
it'd be a total game changer, and people they'd have I'm telling you, the scarcity mindset would disappear real fast. Yeah. The thing is, that's the hidden gem. The hidden gem is knowing how much money is actually in the market, right? How much is in the industry and can be accessed. We have this perspective on the value of what we do based off of, you know, really, if you think about like the corporate world, right? If you think about the corporate world, like you're basing it off of an employee salary. Most employees today are making, you know, anywhere from $2,500 to $3,500 a month. Bro, like in the world of America today, good luck even supporting yourself, let alone a wife or kids like that today, especially in the housing market. What are you going to get with that? That barely covers a quarter of my overhead. You know what I'm saying? Like, and so it's like, and so for one, I think it's ruthless for companies to be undervaluing the slice of the pie, which is marketing, that really brings the overall vision of a brand together. You take any company, let's take CrossFit. Let's just say CrossFit HQ. Remove the marketing from CrossFit. What do you have? You have a company that just died. That's across the board. We are the most valuable proponent to any brand, period. Without content today, without, you know, photography, videography, brand identity, media kits, all that stuff that we offer, without that, brands do not exist. They will die. We live in a digital space. So knowing that should really emphasize the value that you as an individual have. You undervalue how much time you put in. If all of us made a list of the things that we've had to buy on top of the time, let's say we had to allocate the time that we spend doing all this, right? Just like you punch in your miles when you drive for a job or gas mileage or whatever it is, do that with content creation. Bro, the amount of value that holds, that's well above twice the average, you know, annual salary to a traditional company. And so again, it's like we set these standards based off of this mindset that the corporate world gives us, instead of realizing that like we are here to set our own standards, right? Instead of that's your monthly pay, bro, that should be like per client at least. You know, there's the cap to what you're able to achieve. You need to remove that and just take a leap of faith. I can't tell you how many companies I've been rejected by. A lot. But here's the thing. If I pitch to 100 clients and only one says yes, that's a win, right? If I'm pitching 4K, right? If I'm pitching 4,000 to one client, 100 of them reject me, one of them says yes, I still came out $4,000 richer. It's the hustle. It just is what it is. Be okay with it, because that
Yeah.
money will pay off. Like that's, and so imagine two of those. Now you're well above the median household income in America, just with two clients at 4K. You're well above. Now you're able to actually, start talking about home ownership. Now you're actually talking about savings, right? Investments. Now you've hit that bracket, and it only took two clients of knowing your value. We have to reset standards in this industry that's going to allow people to, start charging what they're worth. Because if not, then this is going to continuously be a competitive game where, we're both going to be going after the same people and stepping on each other's feet and trying to just chop wood from underneath us.
I agree. Yeah, that's a great point of view. And adding more to what you were saying about, the clients and finding your job. So I was looking at your Instagram. There's a clip that I really liked that you were talking about saying no. So also, you're talking about finding clients, but also the part of saying no to some clients or to some jobs, right? Because at the end of the day, like you have goals on like the industry that you want to be at and like the things that make you passionate. And there are some opportunities that might get to you that yeah, the money's good, but it's something that you're not passionate about. And you were talking about like weddings, stuff like that. Can you like touch a little bit to that?
Yep. So here's the thing with finding a niche. I would say it's probably the most important thing to scaling your business. Let's say I own Nike, right? Nike is an athletic apparel brand. Even with their lifestyle concepts, it's got an athletic feel to it. So I know that going into it, right? This is what my brand is. That I'm a well-established and I have my identity already set. Now, let's say you have Florez Media and then you have Bound Media. Okay. Bound Media has weddings, families, sports, and then real estate and corporate headshots. Florez Media has only what Nike specializes in. It's self-explanatory. This is why a niche is so important, because I want to go to the experts. Where do we get our information from when we want to learn something? The experts. Who do we ask when we have questions? The experts. So when you find a niche in the industry, something that speaks to you, again, it doesn't have to be sports. I'm just saying general. Like when you find something that you can really become great at instead of being mediocre at a ton of things, when you can find that one thing that you end up being great at, you now become an authority in that industry. Now you have a presence. You're known as the guy that creates that sports content, or you're known as that real estate photographer, or you're known as that FPV drone flyer, right? Like these are things that are massive when it comes to declaring your value to a brand. Like, hey, like you sell apparel. I'm really good at creating content around fitness apparel, and I have this whole portfolio to show that, right? And the second part of that too is like I legitimately just didn't care about any of the other stuff. Like that was work that I did. I was taking a paycheck, but it was just as bad as working a 9-to-5, because
Yeah.
although I was shooting a camera, not to be like a dick, but like I don't care about like your love story, or I don't care about like how cute your kids look on the beach. I do. I got kids, but you get my point. Like it was not something that fueled my passion. Like I didn't like shooting it. I didn't like editing it. At that point, it was like shoot it, send it over, and good riddance. Like I'm done with this one, right?
Yeah.
I don't feel like that with the clients today. Like when they shoot today, I would shoot for free. And that fuels me working harder, right? I'll work longer hours. I'll work through the night. Like I'll make relationships with the business owners, with the marketing team, with the finance team. Like I want to be I actually want to be there. I want to have community with the clients that I have. That's going to speak volumes to the content that you're able to pump out. It shows in it. You can tell when it was like something you kind of slapped together, or something that like you spent maybe a little too much time on that project, but damn, it was worth it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like that's a huge difference.
Yeah. And Alex says here, talk about how you go about finding your niche and to avoid putting out the same content as everyone else. So it kind of like leads into that.
Yeah. Yeah. So what I do is I do campaign work. And the reason why I do campaign work is because it's versatile, one, but like the reality of it is like companies make the majority of their money through campaigns, right? Again, like if I'm Nike and I have a shoe and the shoe be put out in 2 weeks, well, how am I going to put out that shoe? Right? I have to think about all the pieces of the content puzzle that is going to sell that product effectively, and it's going to really draw that hype around it, right? So you have your, you have your studio content. Every brand can't go without studio content. You need to see the product isolated in its detail. Then you need to learn the value and the identity behind that product. Why did you put it out? What is it, right? This is where you have like a more branded video where like the owner's talking about it with B-roll and you're seeing the product in detail, right? Then you have like your in-action stuff, right? So for me from fitness, like I'm seeing the shoe being worn in action. How does it hold up when I'm jumping over boxes or sprinting or whatever, right? And then I'm seeing photos of the person in action so I can get a close detail of it. Then there's the lifestyle component. Can I wear these when I'm walking to the coffee shop? Like these are all well-rounded components of content that create what is called a campaign, right? It covers all, it checks all the boxes on that list to be able to push out a product in an effective manner and create an aesthetic on a brand's page. It gives them a look. It gives them diversity in content. When you do all of the same content all the time, what it does, it doesn't ignite someone's drive to want to keep going back to your page, right? ASRV, if you haven't heard of them, look them up. One of the best brands when it comes to motivation for a content creator. Surprisingly, it's not what they push, but I'm telling you, if you're a content creator and you're not following ASRV, you're missing it. They use athletes that have massive followers, but you would never know that because they don't tag them, right? I know them through the industry. I've worked with a lot of them, and I know they have huge followings. These are influencers, right? These are well-known athletes. They don't tag them, yet they have over 1 million followers on Instagram. So what does that tell you? It's not about the hype around influencers. They have developed a brand and a voice that speaks to you. The content that they put out speaks to the consumer. It speaks to your emotion. It speaks to the relativity of the content. It speaks to the value of their product, and it speaks to the culture that they're cultivating. This is a huge component. As a content creator, you have to acknowledge if you want to bring your value up to a brand, because the relational component is where the ROI lives when it comes to consumer to brand. If you don't have relationship between consumer to brand, then you blend in with the thousands of other brands that exist. What separates you? And so knowing that as a content creator, it's like, man, how do I make myself different, right? If everyone's shooting this content, what am I going to do that's going to make it different, right? I had to come up with that question because I struggled with the same thing. And so I started capitalizing on storytelling. I so much so that I put it in my bio. Like storytelling is what speaks to my heart. One, I heard Neil Patel talk about, he's this social media guru. If you don't know him, check him out. He talked about like how no matter how long like marketing has been alive, and it's always changing and evolving and adapting, the constant in the marketing field is storytelling. That part never goes away. You have to be able to tell a story regardless of it being a 10-second reel or not. Tell a story or you're going to miss it. So for me, I started, telling stories. I started talking about like what the brand supports. I started talking about, even if like it's as simple as a t-shirt, you're putting out a t-shirt, like what influenced the idea of putting out that t-shirt? Let me capture that on camera. Let me show you the stretch of this microfabric, right? The shirt's made of bamboo. Let me overlay some B-roll of this bamboo. Let me tell you the history of the bamboo. Like the storytelling makes you feel a certain way. If you watch movies and you cry, that's cinema, right? So when you apply the cinema component to content, you pull emotion. You drive sales.
I love it. Yep. Yeah, dude, absolutely. And you can see it too. You can see when people are more driven to the storytelling part of the video. Like sometimes I see some really nice, like, beautiful video, the way they put it out and the transitions and everything. But at the end, like I finish the video and it's kind of like, oh, yeah, that was hype, but it didn't like give me that like sense of like, shit, like this good, and it's like that storytelling part of it. As you said, there's people that can do it in a 15-second video, kind of like a hype reel, and just kind of like gives you that like that story of like that of the day of the competition. Let's put it for example, and in 15 seconds, like the video ends, and you're like, oh yeah, like you get it right away. It's something that like you can feel.
Yeah, man.
And talking about the campaigns, and you've worked with really big clients, like you've worked with UFC, you've worked with RVCA, which I thought it was RVCA. You've worked with companies like Nike, Reebok, many companies. right? And you've done campaigns for them. How do you reach out to those clients, and how do you sell your product, your campaign? Like, how do you put it in front of them to the point that they're gonna find value in your work?
Yeah. So there's levels to brands, right? Companies like that, it's a lot harder in a sense of they usually work in-house, so they have their full-time team. So a lot of those companies, they were one-off campaigns. So I'm not like residual with Nike or anything like that. But like Nike, for example, they reached out to me. It was one of those things where like, let me preface with this, right? Let me start with this because this is important. The social media platforms are your to-date business card, right? Um, they are what people land on when they hear about you. So it's very important, like the cliche you hear, whenever the opportunity presents itself, make sure you're ready, right? So COVID was going on, and a lot of these big corporate companies, they weren't traveling. They weren't sending the content creators out. So they had a gig that they needed here in Columbus, Ohio, and they somehow, I asked them too. They were like, "We just found you. Nike just found me. They just found me, and they liked my page, and they hired me for a campaign to work with this retired WBA star who is now working for Nike, and they have this whole division that they built out for retired professional athletes. And I was able to create content for that, right? So it was like I was ready and prepared for the moment, right? My content and my ability to establish my value on my page was present enough to where when they saw it, it opened the sales funnel, right? It opened the door for them to inquire. That's huge. So like that's a lot of the times it's not this like crazy, it's not this like trade secret. It's more, a lot of the times it's like being in the right place at the right time and being ready when that time presents itself, right? Another thing too is like this was my approach, and I highly recommend if you're in the it might not work in other industries, but it works great in fitness. My approach was I didn't target brands early on. I targeted the athletes. The reason why I targeted the athletes is because pay athletes pay athletes drive sales for a brand. So I would see an athlete, and again, like I know a lot of these people just from my from my personal brand and being in the fitness space. I used to long story short, I used to travel and teach mobility workshops around the country, and so I knew a lot of people, and so I would reach out to these people and be like, hey, like let's create some content. I would look at who their sponsors were, right? Who the brands were that they were following. Like, all right, well, let's pitch a campaign to your sponsor, right? Let's come up with an idea that'll drive value to the brand, and it ends up being a win-win, right? The athlete is gonna be stoked because they get content out of it. I'm stoked because I get paid, and the brand is stoked because now the athlete that they sponsor is being highlighted, right? So it was this like common sense goal that we all had that just made sense. Everyone wins, right? So that was my approach. It still is. I do it a lot. Because brands are, not to harp on them, but like they're busy. And a lot of the times, most of us get swept under the rug when you reach out. It's really hard to just organically reach out. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. And everyone's got a different approach. Like my friends, Paul actually was the one that told me to start emailing instead of cold DMs. I tried that and it didn't work for me. I didn't land one client through emails. So then I started doing cold DMs, and that's how I got all my clients. People were responding, and then I just knew the right kind of words to say to kind of drive the curiosity of the brand. Like, hey, like I got some stuff that I think you're gonna like. Let's chat about it. And they'll be like, all right, well, what do you have in mind? Whatever. Let's just hear them out. And then boom, learn how to sell yourself, right? You got them through the first sales funnel. But that's more often than not, that's how I got those bigger campaign work, was through proper connections and networking, which is why, again, these cliches matter, right? Don't burn bridges. You never know when that's going to come back around. A lot of these people, if I would have burned those bridges with the athletes, I would have never worked with those companies.
Yeah, absolutely. Talking about campaigns, whenever we were at Granite, we were at dinner with Alex, and you were talking about the way you present your campaign, and I thought it was super interesting because you were saying that some people some companies whenever they launch a product, they do only like outdoors and I don't know, the shoe, and they have the athlete running, doing some workouts, but they don't have like the product shoot or like the indoor. You kind of like sell the whole campaign. Like you're gonna do the flats, you're gonna do the, I don't know, like those fancy like studio, like with the lights, and then you're gonna do the outside. You're gonna do the photos, the videos. Kind of like explain a little bit about your whole process of making a campaign.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, it's like paying attention to, like, just go to the big lines, man. Go to the big brands and see what they do. There's a reason why they're successful. This is a huge thing to understand, right? Noble. If we want to use an example that's relevant to CrossFit, go look at Noble's campaign models, right? When they are putting out a shoe, they will, for, let me pull this up just to kind of drive it home. When they have a campaign, so they did that, let's use the runner shoe, right? When they launched the new runner, they not only did they have the shoe by itself in studio, so you can see what the shoe actually was, but then they had the short intense clips where it was someone just running through the city, right? With the epic sound design, a lot of scenery, and then they have like the longer version of that video. I'm not sure if they put it on their YouTube or not. And they have, athletes using it in photo form. So I would go to these brands and would look at all the varieties of content that they were using, right? And again, I'm going to keep pointing back to ASRV because not only do they do this, but they create an aesthetic with it, and that's super important. But it was like paying attention to all the pieces of the puzzle that I early on had to outsource. I didn't know how to do it. Studio work was like the biggest thorn in my side, bro. It intimidated me. I didn't know how to use strobes. Like flash photography was like, oh man, that was like calculus. Like I hated it. I always stayed away from it, but I knew that's where the bucks were, right? Like if you can do studio work, that's the big stuff, because that's what companies need for their websites, to run ads for campaigns. Like, so I just started to learn piece by piece how to do all these things, right? Skillshare has great courses on it, but I learned the majority of it through asking, right? My buddy Colton Tish out of California shoots for companies like 10,000, a lot of dope companies. I was seeing his stories one day and he was posting dope studio stuff, and then I saw the outcome and I was like, hey bro, like legit, like I need to know how you do this, please, like step by step show me. He literally drew me out a diagram of where to put my lights, where to put reflectors, like where he's shooting from, what it meant to shoot tethered. Like he broke it down for me. This is the kind of stuff that, like, without that day of me asking and him helping, I wouldn't have learned how to do that. And it's changed everything for me, right? And so, like, same thing, like I looked at ASRV's flat lays. They were doing flat lays that was different than any other company. Most flat lays have this very white blown out backdrop, and it looks like what's called like beveled, where it looks like it's like a cutout, right? Like they photoshopped it and then there's a white backdrop. ASRV did flat lays where the shadows were still in there. So you could tell that they didn't cut out. It was just a clean edit.
Mm-hmm.
That was like mind blowing to me. I was like, that's new. People aren't doing that. So I adopted that style, right? It's just being able to look at what each piece of content does and not excluding one because you can't do it. No, and knowing that it's important to be able to offer it all. If I'm going to offer a campaign, I want to be the guy that can do it all for you. One, because the pay is going to be better. But two, let's say a company only needs flat lays. Let's say a company only needs action videos. I don't want to limit what it is that I can offer a company, because then that limits the companies I can work with. There's tons of big companies that don't need all the way around. Like, hey, I just don't like my flat lay guy, or like I just don't have a good storyteller for cinema, or like I don't have you know what I mean? Like there's always
Yeah.
it's different when you find a company that has everything that they need. They need you to just do it all. It's tough to get in that space because a lot of them already come in, and then they kind of have to, like, in order for that to work, they got to kind of let go of the person they're currently working with. And it's weird. It's sticky situations. And you want to just be able to offer it all, and that'll get your foot in the door. So if you're like, hey, like, yeah, I'll just do your flat lays. They end up turning out great. And they're like, damn, like this guy's really good. Like, what else can you do? Now your foot's in the door. Now you can start offering, A, B, and C. But again, that campaign work it's super important, man. It's the stuff that's going to drive sales. Companies can ask the event work, for example. I love it. Great work, cool stuff. Events do not drive sales for products. You know, I'll do that all day. I could not imagine a single way of seeing a product having significant ROI from event work. So if that's something that you're going to capitalize on, you need to learn how to value yourself differently. It's knowing what space that you're good at and knowing where the value is. Because if you're just going to offer these random photo packages going to events, bro, these companies, they're going to lowball you all day long. And you're going to work super, you know, and then the thing is too, how many events of those do you have to do to make 100K a year? Like, these are all things you got to consider,
sure.
right?
Yeah.
So you got to know the business component of it, or else you're going to get burnt out, man.
Absolutely. And I think that there's no conscience that the brands that are growing the most, is those brands that really put attention into their content creation, the way they present the product to the people. And you were mentioning Noble. I think they do a really good job, and we were talking about it too. Like, as you mentioned, like the campaigns and everything, like you can tell they don't go the cheap route, right? And there's a reason why they're so successful and it's so trendy and why people like it so much. And some of my friends like tell me like, dude, but the shoes are not even that cool. They have like the same colors and everything, but the way they present it, the way they present it's so good and so trendy. Like, people like nowadays, like people, if you wear Nobles, it's like a cool thing, right? Like, you're like, oh, I'm wearing Nobles, you know. It's like, it makes you feel cool. It makes you feel like you have. There is a page called Make What's Great Again. John Woolley, and he always jokes about like, yeah, you know, like when I go to a new gym, I want to tell people that I have money, so I use Noble, right? Like, it's like it's just kind of like he's used that's what Noble is like presenting people to feel, and they're using like, you know, these athletes are also gonna be like people want to like the people look up to, and I don't know, they're doing it right. They're not going the cheap route.
Well, think about it, bro. Like, if you are in a position to say that the quality of the shoe isn't good, well, hey, bro, they made you buy a pair of shoes. Like, they won. Like, that's the reality of it. They did their job. Like, this is why it makes them so genius. I'll tell you what, I've seen a dramatic change in that brand's marketing tactics, and I guarantee you they studied some people. You know, their stuff is looking a lot like what I'm talking about here, which is the overall campaign work. They don't look like your traditional CrossFit brand. You can tell that they're starting to get influence from other fields of industry. They're starting to reach out into that more high intensity training. You can tell it's starting to dabble with what like Under Armour's doing, right? Like, it's great marketing tactic. Like, that's the whole thing, is like, you could have the worst product. If your marketing is phenomenal, doesn't matter. You're going to buy it. I'm not going to drop names, but there's tons of supplement companies where the supplements are absolute garbage, or their products basically will give you cancer in 3 weeks. But bro, people are buying them, drinking them, using them. Why? Because their marketing's phenomenal. They want to be a part of the culture. They want to say that they drink that, or they hang out with the people that work there. They've been to that HQ, or they work out at that gym. Like, it's about the culture, man. If you can cultivate your marketing around the culture that sells, then if you have a product that's good, that's double whammy. But like I said, like, a lot of these companies are getting it. They're catching on, whether Noble shoes are good or not. You think their ROI is going to say something different? 100%.
Yeah, and you mentioned that it's not your typical CrossFit brand. It's true. Like, if you think about like brands for apparel before Noble, it was kind of like the same. Like, it had the same like style. And they're expanding into different things. I know they have like golf shoes, stuff like that, and their marketing behind it's like really good too. Like, you see it. Like, I used to play golf, and I was talking to Keith. I'm like, dude, like, those shoes are, I don't know, I want to try them. I want to play golf with them. And I mean, it's just the way they presented it to the public, it was kind of like exciting, like some Noble golf shoes.
And here's the thing, their content for that stuff, right? Like that swimmer that they sponsor, you don't even have to swim to be completely in love with the content they've made for that. That was some of the best cinematography work I've seen in a long time. That stuff was phenomenal. Their sound design, the way that they merged the guy's training in his garage and in the street, and converting that to the swim essence, like the voiceovers, like it. I would buy swim products even though I don't swim, just because of how good that content was. Like, makes you want to be a part of it. Like Scott Stallings, like I don't golf. I go to a driving range, but that's not golfing. Like, yeah, I mean, like that's as far as I'll get. But like, yo, like the campaign work was insane behind that, and it makes me want to buy those products. You know, they sell you on the emotional draw that content creates. And so like, and they're gonna keep crushing it. They keep doing this, you know, they start pulling themselves out of that, you know, pigeonhole of CrossFit, start expanding. No, it's gonna get even bigger, which is crazy to think about because they're pretty freaking big right now, you know. But if they start tailoring to other industries and they start kind of getting that well-rounded fitness perspective, and they continue on the way that they're doing, the trajectory that they have with marketing, they're gonna crush it. And to me, like this is the most mind-blowing part is like other brands will see this happening and they don't adopt it. They think like their methodology is better. They think any brand, dude, any brand that's is emphasizing on user generated content, like I can't handle that. I can't handle the mindset there. It doesn't make any sense to me. Like user generated content is cute for community and stuff, but when that's all you rely on, one, you're telling people that you're cheap. You're super cheap. You don't have money in a marketing budget, so you have random people post and you'll repost it. And bro, that was like, oh, I think in the past. Like if you're still doing that, I want nothing to do with you. Like that is a horrible tactic. And like on top of that, how is user generated content going to sell you any products? What's that going to do? I'm going to learn more about that person's profile than I am the product they're using. So like these are things that bigger companies will acknowledge, right? They don't latch on to trends. When you look at, let's use again any big content, Redbull, Monster, whatever. The big trend, right, that hit the scene was Reels. Still kind of is, right? Reels is the big thing. All these companies that are actually established, that are like the mom and pops of industry, the ones that you can't compete with, did they make all of their content what the current trend is? Absolutely not. They would never do that. Why? Because as soon as that trend dies, the brand dies. They're going to have to find something else to latch onto. But these smaller scale, these beast companies, right? This is what they do. Oh, like, hey, we want to hire a content creator, but like we only want Reels. We just want Reels because like that's what people like and that's where all the engagement is at. You lost already. Your sole emphasis is engagement and not relationship. Engagement doesn't sell products, relationship does. Yep. First form sells supplements. Secondarily, they created such community and culture around the brand, you forget that they sell supplements. Yet they're the biggest supplement company in the world. It tells you that it's not about the product. You need to speak to the consumer and the product will sell itself. And so when as content creators, we have to be able to be diverse, right? And you have to be confident enough to pitch this to a company, to a brand. If they're like, hey, I only want Reels, dude, I'll come back at you with that all day. Yeah, no, I get that you want Reels. That's cool. But like, let me explain this part to you, because like what happens when Reels go away? You need to be able to have a foundation to stand on, right? These big companies and it's not like Nike doesn't do Reels. What I'm saying is they don't only do Reels, right? They still maintain their storytelling. They still put their products out there. Why? Because you can't put the same outcome or desired outcome on different types of content. For example, a storytelling piece that's going to be an hour long or an hour and a half long, right? A story piece that's going to be like 3 minutes long, 4-minute video, whatever, kind of Carhartt vibe that they do when they're telling the story of a mom and pop shop owner. That content was never intended to drive engagement. It's not intended to drive sales. It's intended to tell a story. When you want to drive sales, you emphasize on the product. The problem is we separate them and think that they can't coexist. You have to implement it all. This is what creates a pie. There's a reason why there's slices to a pie, but you need all the slices to make the pie whole. If you take the slices out of the pie, well, you don't have a complete pie. So there's storytelling pieces, 2 minutes, 3 minutes long. That speaks to the consumer about who you are. Like, why do I even want to care about what the brand represents? What do you stand for? Like, who are you? Who's the owner? Why did it start? Oh, you started this with $3 in your pocket? Dope story, right? Started in rural Arkansas. I don't know. I'm just spitballing here, but like, this is the kind of stuff that people want to hear. They want to know about the brand identity.
And they feel connected. They feel connected to the brand after they see it. They're like, oh my God, like they still started like I don't know, like as you said, like $3 on their pocket, and then it's almost like they build that connection with the brand, and then from there, like as you're saying, like it's not selling a product. That the video didn't sell a product. Like he wasn't like showing like, hey, hey, this is my shoe. You know, like I'm selling this, right? Like, but it's selling you a story. Like it's telling you a story that it's gonna like build that connection, that strong connection with the brand. And then whenever they show you the shoe, like the actual like hype about it, you're gonna be like, okay, yeah, like wanna buy it.
It's a different approach. It's a different outcome. Like all have to come together, right? You make the reels. There's your engagement. Cool. Drive your traffic. Drive your views or whatever it is that you're focusing on. That's cool. It's cute. You know, like do that. But there's more to it, right? If you just do a bunch of reels, then you're just a brand that does reels. I still don't know anything about you. I don't know anything about what you stand for. I don't know anything about your products. I don't know anything about the quality. Where is it being sourced? I don't know who's behind the screen, right? Who's your team? How many brands are highlighting their team? Not many. You know who is? Noble. Like they get it. Like they get it. I'm not going to say that, I'm not going to say that I'm in full alignment or whatever, but what I'm saying is I support their marketing strategy. It's important to acknowledge these are all things that we as consumers care about. We care about who those people are, what they stand for, where, like what product is it durable, like who the owner is. How many of us would love to know owners of brands, right? Who are the heads behind CrossFit HQ? Like these are lurking questions that we all want answers to. So when a company capitalizes on this stuff altogether, like, man, like it's a gold mine of content is going to breed community. True. And this is where you get that following, which I would say is like almost an occult following, right? You get people that'll wear your stuff just because your name's on it. The check mark of Nike, well established to the point that people will wear some of the ugliest things I've ever seen just because Nike touched it. Just is what it is, right? They've developed that relationship with the consumer so much that they can literally create an event selling peanut butter and the tickets would sell out.
Yeah. There's a quote that, I'm probably going to butcher it, but it's something like people don't quit on family, right? And it's like they sell you the story and the product to the point that you feel like you're a part of it. You're a part of the community. And then, as you said, like they can literally drop whatever they want. People are going to buy it. Let's answer some questions here. Jordan asked, what advice do you have for someone still new in the space about connecting with brands to generate opportunities and business? So somebody new.
Yeah. One, I would say I would start with don't be afraid of rejection. It's going to happen. I think that's what discourages us as content creators a lot is like we'll get rejected a lot. And then we'll compare. We get rejected and then we compare to others that are established or have clients and be like, why isn't it happening for me? Or like, I'm better than that person. Why are they booking clients? Am I doing something wrong? I can guarantee you they also went through it or are going through it. You're seeing the highlight reel of all of it, right? My page only shows you the clients I work with. It doesn't show you all the clients that turn me down. So be okay with the being rejected component. That's one. Two, have some courage. Like have some courage to put yourself out there. I've reached out to big companies that I thought would never see my DM and then they did, and I developed a relationship, right? I've had companies where it seemed like they were well established, but I just felt like I offered something new and I reached out and then they reached out back and they hired me for that specific thing, right? Like have the courage to contact people. Have the courage to go through the circles of people, like offer your service. Just the other day, like, hey, I don't know if you need me or not. Doesn't seem like you do, but this is like what I would love to offer you. I think I have some cool ideas that I think as a brand you'd really appreciate. And like if you're interested, cool. If not, like either way, I'd love to connect with you guys. You know what I mean? Like that's the kind of stuff that like people appreciate. And if it doesn't work out right there in the moment, yeah, I've had a lot of brands come back and then like they turn me down at the moment, but 6 months later, hey, we got this thing and we need you. That beginning process is hard, man. There's no way around it. Like you just got to be okay with that hard work. I know like our generation today it's a different breed. It's an unfortunate different breed. It's not the same breed where 20-year-olds are going to war. You know what I mean? But like, you got to be okay with the trials and tribulations of business. If entrepreneurship, and making the next bracket of income is something that's important to you. I wanted to be, my biggest driving factor was my kids. I wanted to be available to my kids and provide for them. That was the biggest thing. If I had a vision board, that's all I would have on it, period. And so with that, it's like, you're not going to kill my drive. You're just not, like, and so I will continue to keep moving until, 10 brands that rejected me, end up being 2 brands that reject me. And I end up getting the ones that I want, until you get to that point where you start turning them down, right? Like, that's the goal. Why? Because at the end of the day, they can survive without you. Learn that as a content creator. They are nothing without you. And so when you understand that, you can start tailoring your content. You can start tailoring your, the clients you work with. You can start, I'm not like, you're not vetting me as a content creator. I'm vetting you. I need to see if you're a good fit in my life. Are you a difficult client? Do you have good communication? Do we align with the same values? These are things that you're not even thinking about right now as a beginner, but I'm telling you, like, it's important, because eventually you're going to be like, I shouldn't have taken that client. I've had big clients, put it that way. I've had clients that had a large pocket, right? And I stopped working with them because the stress of working with them was way more than what I signed up for. It didn't add up for what I was getting paid. At that point, they needed to be paying me double. It was insane. So it's like, just, it's sticking to your guns, and like, having that courage to like walk through that fire for a while. It's going to sting, but like, it's the only way through it.
Absolutely. Dude, Christian, we've been on for 1 hour and 11 minutes. I know I told you 1 hour, but I couldn't cut it short.
I can go for 3 more hours,
yeah,
bro.
as Lillian said, you were dropping all the knowledge bombs.
Lillian's amazing. I
Yeah.
haven't met her yet. I want to, though.
Yeah, I haven't met her in person either. We've talked a lot, but hopefully we can meet her at the games. But yeah, she's always listening to the podcast and giving me feedback, so pretty awesome. Christian, let's cut it right now at 1 hour 12 minutes. But definitely, I need to have you soon on the podcast, back on the podcast. Maybe do some like team stuff with Alex. We can have Alex here too, and we can all like have a conversation. I don't know, I have some ideas for the future, but definitely I need to have you back. As you said, like, we can talk for like 3 hours.
Bro, if we all go to the games, it'd be super cool to do like a round table.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's definitely something I've been thinking about it. So, but yeah, definitely, I'll love to have you back. I appreciate you being on the podcast in such short notice. But yeah, man, I love what you do, and just keep grinding. Before we go, what's next for Christian Florez and Florez Media?
Man, same grind. I'm just fine tuning some stuff. I'm in Columbus, Ohio, but I'm moving to Florida in a couple months. So that's what's next for me. I'm super pumped about that. If you don't know, I'm from Cali. I think I mentioned that. So
yep.
I'm excited to get back to that coastal scene. It's what I grew up in. It's what I was too. And just start working with, other content. I mean, you're in Florida. I'm super hyped about that. A lot of people I've connected with are in Florida. So I'm super hyped to just start breeding those relationships and, bringing everyone together.
Absolutely. How can people find you and find about your job, your work?
On Instagram, it's just Florez Media, Florez with a Z, like zebra. Website, same thing, florezmedia.com. If you look me up on YouTube, I put like my full length videos that aren't, cropped to meet Instagram standards. So if you want to like check out the full versions in 4K quality, YouTube is where it's at. Yeah.
Awesome, dude. Thank you so much. Thanks everybody that's listening. I'm going to try to put this episode on Spotify today. I'm traveling in like 4 hours to North Carolina to shoot a wedding. So I'm going to try to get all that done before. But if not, I'm going to try to get it done during the weekend. But everybody, thanks for listening. Make sure you click the like, subscribe. I have already one episode planned for Tuesday. I'm not going to say who it is, but he's got a beautiful beard. You can probably kind of have an idea of who it is. And I'm going to try to schedule another one for Thursday. So hopefully we'll have 2 next week. I know I kind of like slapped a little bit the past 2 weeks, and yesterday the audio was all messed up. So, but hey, we're back, and I'm glad to have you here, Christian. Like, thank you so much, man.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me, man.
All right. Thanks everybody. Have a good one.